Time for another long distance trek, and this time I'm starting in muskox territory. And after just an hour and a half of hiking, I spotted an old bull, but I didn't really have time to stick around, so... In the distance you can see Snøhetta. I have summited that mountain before, and here I'm passing Reinheim. I've been to this area 12 years ago, so I am familiar with this region. In addition to the muskox, I spotted an eagle and a falcon as well. I kept a good pace and I got to the cabin exactly when the sun was setting. There were people there and they offered me fresh fish and martini, so that was a pleasant surprise. It was sunny in the morning, but quite cold. I had spent 2 nights at this cabin in the past since we summited Storskrymten back then, which is the highest mountain in that region. I was not too sure how my body was going to be handling this start, because it was a long first day, a long second day, and I had gotten my COVID shot, my second shot, just a couple of days before I started, and in addition to that I had back problems that I was taking some ibuprofen pills for, and I felt my back for a few days, but it got going. As you can tell, I have a small backpack this time as well. It's roughly between 6 and 10 kilos. This area is Dovre. It's not the most interesting area in Norway, but it's interesting to pass it at least. Arriving at the cabin here. First dinner, pancakes. Second dinner, pasta and snuding. And after that, it's bedtime. The first couple of days were quite long, so I was not going to cover a lot of ground today. You have some beautiful fall colors here. Birch trees are turning yellow. And I was gaining quite a bit of elevation in the morning, getting above the clouds here. It was quite hard, but I was listening to a podcast, so it worked out fine. During this day, I saw some glaciers and I crossed several rivers too, which was somewhat inconvenient. I saw no trekkers today. Actually, on average, I saw less than 1 trekker a day during the whole time I was out here. When I got to the cabin, I got some water and I made pancakes for my first dinner. Actually, I had pancakes every day except the first and the last day. For my second dinner, I wanted fish balls, but they didn't have any here at the cabin, so I ended up making porridge, which was fair enough, I guess. It was a beautiful morning, and I could see some fresh snow on the peaks. And I guess this area wasn't well marked because I ended up hiking south instead of west in the morning. But I knew I was going to go west, and I knew which direction west was, so I can basically blame myself. So I ended up hiking off trail for a bit, and I ended up having to cross a river without a bridge. That worked out fine. And then I realized that it was quite soft to hike off trail, which was pleasant. After a while, I also found out that not having a trail was inconvenient at times. Got down to the road and actually managed to catch a ride with some locals. Mountains are getting more interesting as I'm getting closer to the cabin. There were 2 ladies working at the cabin when I got there, and they had baked some stuff here that I got to enjoy. I also went out to get some blueberries because I wanted blueberry pancakes. And then there's always some tea in the evening before I go to bed. I got up before 6 o'clock in the morning and I set off at 6:40. Now the reason for this early start was the weather forecast. They were predicting strong winds and heavy rain later on, so I wanted to get going and cover a lot of ground before the weather set in. The next 3 cabins that I'm going to stay at are no service cabins where there's no food stored. So I brought quite a bit of food from that last cabin I stayed at, and my backpack is slightly heavier. I'm getting up higher here, and I can feel the wind is picking up. I ran into a couple of trekkers from Belgium, but except for that I saw no people today. I'm making my way further and further west, and the mountains are getting more and more spectacular, which is quite pleasant when you're out there hiking for so long. And actually before noon I was arriving at the cabin. The weather was still okay, so I was relaxing outside. Later on I went inside to enjoy the fireplace, did some reading, and then went to bed. Early morning again, and this has to do with the weather forecast. They're predicting heavy rain today also. Here I'm checking my heel, doing some taping, preventive basically. I have no blisters yet. I've been hiking uphill non-stop for 2 hours now. It was a very hard day, gaining 1,000 meters of elevation, then dropping 1,000 meters, then gaining another 1,000. Plenty of blueberries though, that was quite pleasant. And I also saw Siamese blueberries. I think that's the first time I've seen that. And here's some mushroom for you, if you're hungry and stupid. The views are getting good now. This is Åmotdalshytta. I'm gonna hike up on the other side to get to my cabin. I hitched a ride with a local lady, and then I continued hiking uphill. The trails I'd been on today were not the best. Not a whole lot of people hike here, but it was well marked, so it worked out fine. Gaining elevation, getting into the fog, weather's setting in, it's raining on me. But it worked out fine. I got to the cabin, made some food, did some reading, did some relaxing, yada yada yada. Every day, same stuff. The next morning it was snow on the ground, and due to the weather and the rain I had planned on a late start, so a little after noon I set off. 10 minutes after that the rain stopped, gaining elevation, and I'm hiking in the snow now. It's beautiful up here. I had a couple of summits planned for this day, but due to the snow I wasn't able to do them, which was unfortunate, but I'm still enjoying this great scenery. I also spotted grouse yesterday and today, quite pleasant, and I managed to break my tripod, but it had served me well, and I was still able to use it a little bit, so fair enough. I'm at the top here now. Then I'm making my way down again. It was very slippery, so I was slipping and sliding all the time. And up on that ridge you see ahead in the middle of the picture right now, that's where the next cabin is. It's a beautiful area as mentioned. You have Helvetestind right there. That was the one I was planning on summiting, but some other time maybe. Making my way down again, and then gaining elevation again, up to the ridge. Every time I approach a new cabin, I'm curious to see if there's anybody there and if there's 4G there. This was a really cool spot. After a while, the fog lifted, beautiful sunset, beautiful views. This is a cabin I will consider going back to, because there are summits in this area that I didn't get to do. I was curious to see how slippery it was going to be the next morning, but I knew that I was going to be dropping elevation quite fast, so after a while the snow was gone and it wasn't too bad, just very wet. I saw no people today either, just a lot of grouse. I think I counted 13 of them or something. Listening to a podcast and enjoying the solitude. Up on my left there's a glacier too. After a while I got to a river. There was no bridge here, so I tried to hike downstream. Wanted to jump the river. I choked. My right boot got totally soaked. But what can you do really? Kept on hiking, got to the cabin, tried to dry my stuff above the fireplace, and spent the rest of the evening relaxing basically. Beautiful sunrise. After breakfast, I went to the bathroom. Here I found a picture of our royal couple on the wall, but inside the toilet, the Swedish king. How about that, huh? Setting off, it was the warmest day, 15 Celsius roughly. Above me I saw 3 eagles. You can see one of them here circling over the mountain. I'm slowly making my way down to the town Isfjorden. And these peaks are popping up here. These are famous mountains. Romsdalshornet, Trollveggen, and also Romsdalseggen that I'm gonna hike tomorrow. I was planning on buying groceries in Isfjorden, but then I realized that it was Sunday, so I continued on and got to the cabin. I had booked the whole cabin, so I knew that I was going to be alone there, which was nice. Checked out the sunset, which was beautiful, and I was getting ready for the last day. I got up at 6 o'clock the next morning and I set off at 7. I wanted to make sure I had enough time to do the summit Blånebba and also catch my train in time to get back to Oslo. It was sunny in the morning, but the weather forecast was talking about strong winds later on, up to 29 meters per second. So that was also part of the reason why I started early, to avoid the worst of it. Here I'm making my way up to Blånebba, which is the highest point on this ridge. Romsdalseggen is one of the most popular hikes in Norway, and it's all over social media. But that hasn't always been the case. 10 years ago, fewer than 1,000 people hiked this one. And now you have slightly less than 40,000 a year, so it's quite popular. There were no other hikers going from Venjedalsbu to Åndalsnes on this day. And that was probably due to the weather. But I did, and I did enjoy it. And my 10-day trek was coming to an end. I had done quite a bit of distance, a lot of elevation. I had to deal with a lot of bad weather and quite a bit of solitude too. And I've got to say I enjoyed it all.